Thank you. Thank you. I'm turning it back over to Bob.
I want to go back and think about those first three issues I talked about, the empire, economics, and the ecological crisis. You know, at some level, those are about those big systems, the contemporary nation state, right, the capitalist economy, and the industrial world that has grown up in recent years. And of course, there's a personal connection we have to all of those systems. In my case, I'm a citizen of the United States and therefore directly connected to the actions of the government. I'm a relatively materially comfortable middle-class person in that capitalist system. And of course, I'm a human being living in that state of tension with the natural, the non-human world. But there's another level of politics that in some ways is much more intensely personal. And I think we need to factor that in as we're out in the world trying to connect to other people and imagine and bring into being this other kind of world. And those are, of course, questions around gender and race. And we all have a gender and race. In my case, I'm a white guy. And a lot of the political work I've been doing has been trying to understand those systems. And I think we have to be willing to name those systems and also then, of course, reflect on where we sit in them, just as we do in the others. So I want to suggest a way of naming those systems. It may seem somewhat antiquated, but I think is still very useful. So in this segment, I want to talk about patriarchy and white supremacy. Now, of course, you're all saying, well, wait. In the Democratic presidential primaries, we had Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, a woman and a person of color. Therefore, patriarchy and white supremacy have disappeared from American culture, correct? No. It's not that easy. Right? So we have to think about these systems of power that structure so much of our lives. Patriarchy, I know, rubs a lot of people the wrong way. It's connected with that period we call feminist, and we all know we're post-feminist. How do we know this? Because Rush Limbaugh told us. But of course, the world tells us we still live in a patriarchal world, a world structured on male dominance. Just look at the statistics, for instance, not only on employment and access to positions of power, but I think one of the fundamental statistics that tells you about gender relations, which is sexual violence. Right? We live in a culture with epidemic levels of sexual violence, and to name that more appropriately, men's violence against women, a condition that has not significantly been changed by the feminist gains of the 70s and the 80s, which were real. And so keeping a focus on this patriarchal world and the injuries that happen as a result of that particular system of power, I think is very important. And I think the term white supremacist is also still a very important term to keep alive. It's a little hard to use in public in the aftermath of the election of Barack Obama, I realize. But again, let's look at the fundamental distribution of power and the realities on the ground. Yes, we've just elected an African American as president, but it's also still the case that there is a racialized gap in every measure of wealth and well-being, every measure that tells us how well people are doing in the world. Things like wealth, income, home ownership, high school graduation rates, infant mortality. There is a racialized gap between white and non-white America on all of those. It's an especially profound gap between white and black America. And what's most striking about that data is that on some of those measures of wealth and well-being, the gap between white and black America in the past 4 decades has actually widened. If you compare the data from the immediate aftermath of the civil rights movement, the late 60s and early 70s, and compare it to the data today, on some of those measures of wealth and well-being, the racialized gap between white and black America is wider today than it was 40 years ago. Right? On those measures where the gap has narrowed a bit, it is narrowing at such a glacial pace that it will be decades, sometimes even centuries at this speed before we achieve parity, before we achieve a just society. So I think white supremacist is still a term to use to describe the distribution of power and resources in this country. And I think we have to continue to talk about those two systems of power. So with that, one more time, please, Eliza Gilkyson.
Unsustainable, unmaintainable. We've gone too far and now it's uncontainable. Let's tear it down, start all over again. Reprehensible, indefensible. The way we are is truly incomprehensible. Back to the drawing board, start all over again. Madly, we loved you madly. We would have gladly maintained the status quo. Badly, we've behaved badly, and now sadly we'll have to let you go. You're so unforgivable, results unreadable. To make a perfect garden so unlivable. Let's tear it down, start all over again. Madly, we loved you madly. We would have gladly maintained the status quo. Badly, we've behaved badly, and now sadly we'll have to let you go. You're so unsustainable, unrestrainable. Our rationale is simply unexplainable. Let's tear it down, start all over, back to the drawing board.